Welcome back. Great to have you with us. This is part 2 of a module looking at pastoral counselling. We're particularly exploring a basic methodology for Christian counselling. Last time we noted that our focus is Christian counselling, not secular counselling, and that we're addressing pastoral counselling, not professional counselling. Then we looked at 3 foundations undergirding this methodology, and after that we went through 4 key objectives in Christian counselling. We finished the session by articulating the first step in our methodology, which was listening. Let's continue. A second step in this methodology of counselling is interpreting. Interpreting is putting things in their right place, or sifting through the levels of complexity to the conflict areas. Getting a person to talk is not usually a problem, but getting them to talk about the right thing is, and that is why listening is very important. This type of focused listening just mentioned is needed in getting to the conflict areas and is being able to understand the facts of the situation in order to interpret them and fit them into place. If we've only learned to use our mouth and not our ears, then it is going to be very difficult to withhold advice and solutions. We'll be tempted to pick up something the person says and launch into a long, wordy, perhaps thoroughly biblical explanation filled with religious jargon and nice-sounding solutions. The only trouble is that we have probably been giving answers to questions that aren't being asked. This whole matter of listening is not something to be taken lightly. We must be diligent in learning to listen. Unfortunately, most people receive little or no training on how to listen. We stress speaking, reading, and writing. Consequently, most people have developed poor listening habits. And here are some ideas to help interpret what the person is saying to us. A. Don't be subjective. Subjectivity is one of the main reasons that people are bad listeners. If we have our own conceptions about people, we will find it difficult to listen to what they say because our mind is already full of our own conclusions. We must set aside our own biases and prejudices and conclusions and let the Holy Spirit instruct us. The way we feel about a person or a type of person or their problem can influence our ability to listen. Avoid bias. Don't judge by appearance. In other words, don't make up your mind about the quality of a person by their race, clothes, hairstyle, posture, or 100 other irrelevant variables. Also, beware of treating person A as you did person B, even though they may have the same problem. Each person is uniquely different, each having different factors in their lives, each is motivated and respond in different ways. And if we have a standard answer for various categories of problems, then we will be poor listeners because we are just waiting for them to finish so that we can recite our words of wisdom. Another cause of subjectivity is when you already know something about the person you are dealing with and you view them as a horse through blinkers. Never take sides in domestic arguments. There are always 2 sides to a story. Be careful. And remember, the way we feel about a person or their problem influences our ability to listen. Now to the second sub-point for how to interpret. B. Discipline our mind. Don't let our thoughts wander all over the place. Unless we learn to concentrate on what is being said to us and follow the person's train of thought, how can we hope to understand the person's problem? Some people let their minds get so preoccupied with things that in the end it's like an overfull garbage bin. It's essential that we quiet our mind and concentrate. Most people talk at 125 words a minute, the speed of speech, but the mind can listen to and absorb an astounding 800 words a minute, the speed of thought. Obviously, the speed differential between talking and listening produces bad listening habits. This encourages our minds to wander. And remember, their speech, the way that they speak, is not going to increase, and our listening and thinking speed is not going to decrease. So please ensure that your listening and thinking is productive by interpreting correctly. C. Avoid distractions and interference. People cannot listen if they cannot hear. And interference comes in all kinds of ways. For example, room temperature, an uncomfortable chair, an offensive odour, screaming kids, other people within earshot, etc. Likewise, ensure that we, as the listeners, are in a good emotional state to listen. If people feel upset, angry, or hungry, they generally do not listen well. Never counsel after a long meeting, preaching, or an emotionally draining event. It's not fair on you as the listener, and certainly not fair on the one speaking. It would be virtually impossible to give quality attention. People cannot always choose where they want to listen, but try to minimize disruption and distractions by doing all within one's power to overcome interference. D. Listen with patience. Allow sufficient time for the person to present their thoughts without interrupting or challenging them. There will be a constant temptation to pick up on some minor or irrelevant issue and deal with that, but listen until you discern the true and real conflicts. E. Listen with focus. How can we more effectively sift through the ocean of information which is being conveyed to get down to the conflict areas? In other words, what should we be listening for or asking about or concentrating on in order to effectively interpret? Well, listen for central themes and key phrases. What do they always come back to? Is there a person, circumstance, or event in their life they always come back to? If so, gently ask questions to obtain more information. Listen for negative feelings such as bitterness, resentment, anger, anxiety, coarseness, greed, or moodiness. These are most frequently repressed but most expressed conflict areas that need exposing to the light. Listen with empathy, which is entering into feeling with others. Even if we listen to what a person is saying, we will still be unable to understand their needs unless we enter into the person's problems as if they were our own. Such a process in professional circles is called empathy. And this will help the counsellor see what motivates the person to respond, react, or feel the way that they do or did. Empathy does not mean that the counsellor necessarily agrees with the person, only that they understand why the other person thinks or acts as they do. This feeling into is regarded as a key process in counselling. And seek for the gifts of the Holy Spirit. In my experience, I would suggest that the greatest proportion of the number of times that I hear God's voice, it's for other people. And the gifts are not just to demonstrate our spirituality in a public meeting. They are graciously given by the Holy Spirit to help us, help people. And many times both the speaker and listener are blinded to the true areas of conflict because of the vines of complexity. And because the Holy Spirit knows everything, He is able to pinpoint the true conflict. And that's where we'll leave our second session. Next time we'll continue our journey unpacking our methodology for Christian counselling. I know that this is going to help you, so please stay tuned. God bless.